Welcome everyone, and hopefully you can all hear me. And we're going to take a look at working with responsive design and kind of focus on the workflow and talk about the tools and a lot of things that were just mentioned. But one of the things I want to kind of put out there in the beginning here is that I'm going to show you a bit about my workflow, what I've discovered, pain points, horrible things, good things, and just let you know that I'm sure you probably are aware of this, but not everybody's workflow is going to be the same. I mean, there's going to be a generic tendency, I guess, if you will, to the same type of workflow, where we're all going to the same goal, achieving the same thing, but it's not always going to be the same route. Okay, so when I say, hey, well, I did this and I did that, you can try it and you can see if it might fit into your workflow, and it may not. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. But first of all, let me just start off by saying I'm Brian Wood, and I'm a front-end developer and a WordPress developer that does some back-end. I don't get crazy, but I work with a fair amount of designers that design up front, and some of them actually are, I guess you could call unicorns, people that can do HTML, CSS, that type of thing. And a lot of times I will get either handoff designs as a file, or looking at my workflow, you'll see kind of some of the ways we hand off and work. And also, I'll also get HTML and CSS on occasion. Okay, it kind of depends on the process. It depends on the client. It depends on the person I'm working with, and whether or not they are willing to do that. But this is just some information if you want to. I've got a YouTube channel, which I have neglected for a couple weeks. I've been putting a lot of tips up there. I've got like 250 tips, video tips up there, and I keep doing lots of stuff. I am a trainer. I am a developer. I do a lot of stuff for Adobe. Just different things. And this is a little bit more about who I am. Not that I want to spend too much time on this, but I have written some books, done things like that. And I live in San Diego, and there we go. So that's who I am. That's who's going to be talking to you. Now, I know that this presentation I'm showing you right now, which is over the web, may be a little slow to react. So what I'm going to do is when I go to another slide, and this is just a web page, when I go to another slide, I'm going to kind of pause for a second and just talk, which I'm good at. I can fill time, if you will. But what we're going to do is we're going to discuss basically what responsive design is. And this is kind of a no-brainer. A lot of us know what this is. But I'm going to discuss the different types of design that we can use and types of sites that we can create just briefly. And then talk about workflows a bit, show my workflow, how it's changed, some things that I've worked with, and then we're going to talk a lot about the specific tools that you can use to get this done. And then you can go out and you can do your exploration and see if it is going to fit with your model. Now, like I said, what the first thing we're going to talk just briefly about is what is responsive design and do you need it? And the answer with that, maybe 2 years ago, was you should consider mobile is coming on, and does your client really need a mobile site or a mobile version, or do they need to consider that? Well, a lot of people that do work for clients, not all clients obviously, but it is happening, meaning responsive design is something that is in consideration. The thing that's interesting to me about responsive design is that it's actually adding to the bill. It's adding to the client bill because of the more intensive work, the workflow, more iterations, the testing involved, just considering that we need to look at different devices. So what I want to do is go to this web page. It's called Liquid Appsive, and I think I'm saying that right. I don't know. liquidappsive.com. I'll give it a second to show up. And this is just a really simple site that goes through and kind of talks a little bit about the different types of design that we can work with. Now, you guys are going to see my messy desktop back here, which I failed to clean up. You can see, I'm more of a do as I say, not as I do person, but I am actually neat. You're going to see that this is a responsive design. Now, what is a responsive design? What's part of what makes a design responsive? Well, we have a lot of things. We actually have what's called a liquid layout, or a lot of people call them fluid grids or something like that. A liquid layout is something that actually responds to the viewport. The viewport is the size of the, well, we'll generically call it the browser window. Okay, whatever. It could be on a device. It could be a lot of things. So you get something, you get content that is responsive. And a lot of us know that to get responsive content, you usually will set widths on things to like percents and different things like that. Now, responsive design also has what are called breakpoints. And you can see right here that as I go and change, you're going to see that it's going to kind of have a massive shift there, and that's called a major breakpoint. So we're using what are called media queries. We're using liquid layouts or fluid grid layouts. We're using media queries to get this to work. And the media query, when we add one, is typically called a breakpoint. And we can have major breakpoints and we can have minor breakpoints. For instance, right here could be a major breakpoint because you're going from, let's say, a tablet. We'll put generic terms on this, which really we don't go with anymore, but we'll go tablet and desktop set, let's say, okay? And then we have another major breakpoint when we get down to, let's say, a mobile version here. You can see right there. So it has its ways of working. So we're using CSS, we're using media queries, we're using breakpoints, we're using fluid grids, and all of these things together, among other things, is what makes a design responsive. Okay, now you may also see, if you look up in the corner up here, you'll see that I've got liquid, adaptive, and static. Now, let me start with the static here. A static, this is what we've been, doing forever and a day. You basically, I said this at a conference the other week. I said, if back in the day, if you could take a website and center it, you were like king of the internet. You're going to see right here that this is a table-based layout or even div, and it just kind of stays the width and centers itself. And then we have what are called the liquid layouts. Liquid layout is not responsive necessarily because it just does this. It's just liquid. It's based on percentages, let's say. And the final type of layout that we can use that we're trying to optimize for mobile, that's the idea here. And mobile is a generic term. Adaptive. An adaptive layout is a little interesting here because an adaptive is more along the lines of progressive enhancement, or it doesn't necessarily have a fluid component. You see some sites that do this, and it depends on the site, it depends on the project, the content, the budget, different things like that, but you can see that as I go down, it's actually adapting to the actual viewport, the size of the viewport here, but there's no liquid component to it. And I apologize, this may be a little stutter step over the webinar here, but you can go to that website if you want to, take a look at it, and just get a general idea for what each of these is and what it does. Now, I know that I said that a lot of us are going to be using some kind of layout like this, an adaptive layout, a responsive layout, that type of thing. But I've actually found that in the work that I've done, it's not always necessary. Some people just don't even care about it, and they have kind of a shoestring budget, and they're like, all right, well, let's just get to desktop and let it scale, because that's what websites do, right? If you create a static website and you look at it on a mobile device, say like an iPhone or an Android device, it's going to just scale it. It's going to make it smaller, essentially.